Hello YouTube, it's Shadow Hero 90, welcoming you to the 5th season of Sexism in Movies and TV. Now, there are many reasons as to why I do this review show. One of which is the portrayal of men in the media is downright horrific. It's an insult. It's why most kids think their dads are idiots. But when it comes to women, they get the get out of horrible portrayal free card. And although I do review a lot of shows and movies that are aimed at a mature adult audience, most of what I review is aimed at a young audience. And yes, I kind of do blame shows like Adventure Time and Loud House and the bulk of what usually appears on this show as being the reason that teenage boys have such low self-esteem. Which is actually kind of true when you think about it from a psychological perspective. When every single portrayal, well, almost every single portrayal of men and boys on TV and in movies is negative, of course these teenage boys, when they first hit puberty, are going to have horrible self-esteem. So, in that regard, I know that I have a noble cause when I rip apart these televised pieces of shit. So anyways, on with the review. Hello YouTube. In this episode of Sexism in Movies and TV, we're going to be doing another bitch monster segment in which I will be tearing apart Sam Manson from Danny Phantom. Originally, I thought it was just me. But after hearing what the mysterious Mr. Enter said in his Danny Phantom review in his Nickelodeon marathon, I actually came to see that no, it wasn't just me. She is a bitch. And apparently, we aren't the only ones who think that Sam Manson is a terrible character. In fact, I agree with everything he said in that video. You're probably wondering where I'd begin. Well, like when I ripped up Mona Simpson, I'm going to do it in chronological order, episode by episode. But it's going to be the episodes where she's at her worst. Stuff where she is bad but not too bad won't be on this list. But I'm going to point out in detail why Sam is a horrible love interest for Danny. And I'm only limiting myself to the first 2 seasons because I did not see all of Danny Phantom Season 3. So anyways, let's begin the beatdown. Okay, Episode 1, Mystery Meat. Sam is actually the cause of the problem in this episode. She was the one who essentially got the cafeteria menu changed to only have vegetarian options, which pisses off the ghost of the previous lunch lady, making her hostile. And I say that because she was not instantly hostile when she first appeared. She only lost it when she found out that Sam changed the menu. So, anyways, the lunch lady tries to convince Sam to eat meat and is actually really nice about it, but Sam refuses still. So, anyways, Danny did save them from the lunch lady when she was in that meat golem mech suit thing, and when he wakes up, Tucker decides to prank him, saying he had been out for 4 days, to which Sam accuses him of nearly getting Danny killed twice. And Tucker rightly calls her out for it. And I agree with him. It's all Sam's fault. So anyways, Sam and Tucker both have their protests out. Tucker's doesn't even seem like a protest. And I actually liked his more even before I knew it was a protest. It actually looks like some kind of fun fair. Where, on the other hand, Sam's protest just resembles a bunch of smelly losers without jobs complaining about stuff. So anyways, Danny has one final showdown with the lunch lady, who was in the right, might I add, and the episode comes to an end. Oh, and one more thing. Before, the first fight between Danny and the lunch lady, I'm just gonna throw in that because of what Sam pulled, changing the menu, the cafeteria expected Dash Baxter, the school bully, to eat mud, and he was going to force it down Danny's throat. If the first fight between Danny and the lunch lady never occurred, Danny would have been forced to eat it. But to get out of it, he throws it in Dash's face and starts a garbage fight, as he calls it. In the second episode, Two of a Kind, Sam essentially takes an embarrassing photo of Danny and Tucker that she actually uses to blackmail them with. Okay, episode 3, Parental Bonding. After Danny defeats some dragon we find out about the upcoming school dance, and Danny and Tucker are essentially acting nervous, jittery, and making it more than obvious that they both have a crush on Paulina just 'cause she happened to walk by. Which is kind of the reaction of every boy she comes across. At least everyone that doesn't really have much confidence in themselves. Okay, so after a couple of jokes, Tucker suggests that Danny try to ask Paulina out. He admits he gets weak-kneed when talking to effeminate girls. Sam is lucky that she's not living in a Disney movie, 'cause if she was, Paulina would be the princess who lives happily ever after, and Sam would be the witch who gets killed off in some ironic twist of fate. If your sister annoys you with one Disney movie, she's annoyed you with them all. So anyways, Sam essentially grabs Danny and thrusts him forward, and he tries to ask Paulina out, but it blows up in his face. After Danny's pants fell down and Paulina laughed and rejected him, Sam walks up and tells her off, calling her shallow, which is essentially what she said about her before when she said that girls like Paulina were a dime a dozen. And considering the fact that these characters appeared on South Park literally 1 year before Danny Phantom even aired, the same thing could be said about Sam Manson. So anyways, in reaction to Sam essentially calling Paulina shallow and walking off with Danny, Paulina gets the idea to steal Danny away. If Sam had done nothing, well, let's just say the conflict of the episode would never have happened. Okay, I'm just gonna say it. The plot of episode 3 is essentially the same exact plot as the Shin-chan episode Can't Elope. Well, or at least the part where Penny tells Maso that Ai's just using her so she can't use him. It's essentially the same thing, minus any sexual indications. Okay, Sam does some research on the amulet that Danny gave to Paulina after Danny unknowingly got into a fight with her after she transformed into a dragon. And Danny realizes he's going on a date with a dragon. Sam gets one quip in, even though she actually really does want to go to the dance, and she just keeps denying it because she's an individual. And Danny said that they should have known because her best friends. And here's something I want to say about the writing. Something like that would be impossible. It's impossible to tell what someone's thinking every moment. She was basically acting like she did not want to go to the dance and would rather see Paulina essentially go complete dragon mode and burn the entire gymnasium down. There's no way that Danny and Tucker would have known that was the opposite of what she wanted. So anyways, Danny possesses Tucker and makes him ask Sam out to the dance. So then when she comes back, and it literally took her less than half a minute to get dressed, she acts like she really wants to go and doesn't want to miss it. And that's literally right after she pretended she was doing it for Tucker because he was stood up. So anyways, Sam tells Paulina that Danny's not her boyfriend, lies about her feelings, and essentially then Paulina admits that she was only dating him because she thought she was stealing him from her. Essentially, like I said earlier, it was the plot of the Shin-Chan episode Cantaloupe, or at least very similar to it. She puts the amulet on Sam, tells Sam that she's going to go out and dump Danny. Sam transforms into a dragon. Danny fights Sam and eventually brings her back to normal. Danny and Sam dance. The end. Okay, episode 5, Splitting Images. In this episode, Sam forces Danny and Tucker to help her replace the frogs that get dissected in the school biology lab with mechanical frogs with what I can only assume was the embarrassing photo she took of them back in episode 2. Okay, episode 20, last episode until we move on to season 2. In the episode Control Freaks, Sam essentially pays Tucker to dress up like her so she can sneak out of school and go to Circus Gothica. Okay, and yes, you could easily say that things went sour when Control Freak was essentially brainwashing Danny and by accident got him to scream their names and what they were doing. But in all fairness, none of them knew that Sam's parents would show up to protest. I know that Sam has, for some reason she hates her parents. The reasons why were never explained, but in all fairness, after everything she's done, I'm just going to say it. I side with her parents. They are in the right. Sam Manson is 100% dysfunctional. Okay, episode 21, Memory Blank. So, Danny and Tucker are really excited about this new truck that just came off the market. So anyways, after seeing that the Ginormo 6000 is a gas guzzler, she tries to get Danny to haunt the place and drive away all its customers so no one would buy a Ginormo 6000. Might I add that doing so would drive whoever owns this place out of business. This car dealer, pretty much would have had nothing to do with this conflict. He's just trying to sell cars and trucks. And Sam wants Danny to go ghost, haunt the place, and drive this guy out of business just because a few of his trucks are environmentally unfriendly. That in itself is illegal. It's sabotage. Danny rightfully refuses, and Tucker takes his side, and he's in the right. He says something that actually makes sense when he says that this wouldn't be the first time that one of Sam's bad ideas got Danny into trouble. And, of course, he doesn't use any of the stuff I mentioned previously on this list. And, yeah, Danny wouldn't want to fly around with a photo of his dad on his chest. But, yes, what Sam wants Danny to do is not only a bad idea, but it would be illegal. If he did that, he might end up in jail by the time of the season 3 finale. Either that, or Danny could listen to Sam, and he'd end up with another Valerie situation on his hands. So, anyways, then Paulina walks up and invites Danny and his friends to her birthday party, hoping to meet Danny Phantom, or the Ghost Boy, as she puts it. So anyways, then Sam reminded how they promised to go to the movies with her, and she already bought refundable tickets. And Danny defends him and Tucker by saying they never get to go to parties like this. And Tucker defends himself by saying he doesn't go if Danny doesn't get to go. And here's something I kind of want to bring up. They actually have to beg her to get out of this. After everything she's done on this list, they could easily use that and say her punishment is that they're not going with her to the movies. So anyways, Desiree makes her second appearance in the episode, and she kinda uses the clause that because Sam said wish, in her hopes that something would happen to Paulina and get the party canceled, Desiree uses her magic to essentially bring the movie monsters to life and send them to kill Paulina. So anyways, Danny then beats down the first monster and demands to know who sent her. And when she replies by saying Sam, Danny kind of jumps to the conclusion that Sam has something to do with this, which technically she does, even if she doesn't know it. So anyways, after explaining to Sam and Tucker what happened, Danny makes Sam wear the Spectre deflector because he knows that somehow this has something to do with her. And I can see why. So anyways, Sam promises to stay out of this fight. Then she jumps on Paulina's moped and crashes into the second monster, destroying it. You think that would actually help her case that she's in the right and not involved, but the thing says her name right before disappearing, essentially making Danny even more suspicious, and I can see where he's coming from. Both monsters knew her name. Both monsters were targeting Paulina, trying to kill her. You know, kind of like if Paulina died, then her parents would actually be forced to cancel the party in order to set up Paulina's funeral. So anyways, Sam helps Danny out of the wishing well, and he gets electrocuted by the Spectre deflector. Danny then says he could have handled it on his own, and Sam accuses him of being an ingrate. Then Danny rightfully tells Sam off. And unlike what this episode's trying to say, no, I side with Danny. He's in the right. When he blames Sam for a lot of the dumbass shit that she has done, a lot of it, well, no, most of it were from episodes I've covered on this list. And then Danny points out that both monsters knew her name, and that she could easily have something to do with it unless another Sam is involved. So anyways, then Sam wishes that she never met Danny. For some reason, Danny is regretting what he said, and then Desiree shows herself. So anyways, then Desiree essentially erases Danny Phantom from existence, which leads to the next day, where Danny has no memory of Sam and no powers. Desiree attacks the school, and when Sam expects Danny to go ghost and fight, he has no clue what she's talking about and thinks she's crazy. You know, if Danny Phantom was more realistic, Sam here would actually not only be seen as crazy by both Danny and Tucker, but she'd be seen as crazy by the entire school. So, anyways, Sam actually acts like a girl for once to try and jog Danny's memory. So, anyways, Sam defeats the final monster of the Trinity of Doom, and this is a moment that's supposed to try and make her redeemable. But in reality, when you look at all the problems she's caused, she's kind of beyond that. I could see people on this show comparing her to a witch. And if the final season was actually written properly, Sam would have been revealed to be a secret villain in the two-part finale, Phantom Planet. The scene fails to redeem her because, well, I have 2 more episodes on this list, and I actually do intend to go back to season 1. So, anyways, then after Danny goes through the ghost portal again, he gets his powers back. So, anyways, Danny was losing the fight, but when Sam wished that she never fought with Danny, Desiree accidentally granted that wish. Danny powers back up and seals Desiree back into the Fenton thermos. And after all of the trouble Sam caused in not only this episode, but the entire previous season, she gets rewarded by having Sam and Tucker go to the movies with her. I'm just gonna say it. No, this is a major flaw in American TV that only applies to girls. The writers are rewarding bad behavior. There are tons of female characters who act like fucking assholes, and in the end of the episode, the writers either allow them to win or get off scot-free with no consequences. It's something that a lot of these idiots need to realize is a flaw in their work, and they should stop doing it. Okay, episode 4, Beauty Marked. Now, I know there are going to be a lot of people who disagree with me on this one, so I'm just going to spell out, well, basically give this episode a really quick recap, and then I'm going to dive into everything wrong with it. Okay, so some beauty pageant is being held in Amity Park, and Sam pretty much thinks it's stupid, and we find out that Danny was made the judge because this guy was using him to find a bride. And when Danny essentially picks Sam, she gets kidnapped by a dragon and is almost forced into marrying the Ghost King dragon guy. So she essentially becomes the kind of wife no man would ever want. Sam convinces the Dragon King's sister to stand up to her brother. Then he's defeated by Sam, Danny, and Tucker. And with the help of the dragon princess lady, they escape. And they then return to Earth, where Danny, who through this whole ordeal was convinced he was a sexist, essentially names Sam the winner, but then she drops out, and so does Danny. He names Tucker his successor, and he goes to the Nasty Burger with Sam, but insists that she's buying, and they try to make this look like it was an actual good ending. They really do want to make this a good ending, but it doesn't work. Sam wouldn't give up anything for Danny and Tucker unless the fate of the world hung in the balance, or they begged her like pathetic little kids. Danny says she's paying for their meals, but that doesn't mean anything because Sam's family is secretly rich. And I'm probably going to get badgered in the comments for saying this next one, but I really gotta say, the episode King Tuck was way better than this episode, because in it, Tucker actually had a reason to let the power go to his head. 'Cause he was actually running for class president, I think, but no one was listening to anything he had to say. Where in Beauty Marked, Sam is just trying to make a jackass statement that only appeals to her. Okay, this might be a really controversial opinion of mine, but then again, I am, after all, the king of unpopular opinions. But this episode is 100% cliché. There have been a lot of TV shows that have done episodes about the Middle Ages or beauty pageants, essentially calling them sexist, when you can only make an argument, or at least in my opinion, you can only make an argument for the prior of the two without making it obvious that you're doing this for social brownie points, and essentially making whoever is pro-beauty pageant, Middle Ages, or fairy tales out to be some kind of straw man or straw girl. Like in the Powerpuff Girls remake, where they did an episode with a princess and they went out of their way to write her as a straw girl, implying that this sort of thing is sexist. Hell, Family Guy did a joke like that where Lois leaves Peter for another man because it was obvious that he was rich enough to buy his own space shuttle rocket. You know, the type of rocket you use to said the Dark Ages are sexist, and have tried to comment on chivalry being dead. Just show stuff like the entitled rebel princess getting the shit kicked out of her in every single episode because she literally does not have the build that the male characters do. She's an independent woman that don't need no man. Fine by me. She doesn't want help. Don't give it to her. Simple as that. Chivalry is sexist against both genders because it literally forces men to essentially help women, but if you put the shoe on the other foot, apparently it's sexist. And a good episode of a cartoon show would actually have that as the moral. Say to its main character, who happens to be a boy, don't give up something you worked hard for this other character just because she's a girl. If she's essentially standing in your way of something that you worked hard for and actually deserve, you should take it from her. Tell her to get lost. But these asshole studios only care about social brownie points, and I don't see a cartoon like that happening anytime in the near future. Not to mention the fact that Sam is legitimately a hypocrite for even entering this beauty pageant. She bashes the thing, she calls it stupid, yet she enters anyways. If Danny wasn't the judge, and hypothetically speaking Dash was, she wouldn't have had a snowball's chance at winning. And when she goes on about not needing to do stuff like this to feel special or have high self-esteem, that's essentially code. Feeling special means she doesn't have to do stuff like this without getting a blow to her already massive ego, and not having to do stuff like this to have high self-esteem is code for she doesn't have to do this, and come tomorrow she'll still have a massive ego. And that's not the only piece of hypocrisy here. I actually do know people who actually would side with Sam Manson, but at the same time like Lola Loud. And that itself is a contradiction. Lola Loud is a character, well, her entire thing is essentially the fact that her life revolves around beauty pageants, attention, stardom, and fairy tales. Sam Manson is the opposite. In all fairness, in season 1 of The Loud House, Lola's life revolved around winning beauty pageants. So, in all fairness, if you hate beauty pageants, you also hate Lola Loud. But if you like Lola Loud, you actually... If you think beauty pageants are sexist, you think Lola Loud is sexist and probably hate her. And the hypocrisy really shines, but it kind of comes out in the fact that these people I know who like Lola but think beauty pageants are sexist are actually, in a sense, endorsing beauty pageants without even knowing it. They are that stupid. If you know me in real life and want me to rattle off a few names of people who endorse stuff that they themselves go on record saying they hate, because they're stupid, I could easily rattle off a few names in that department. Okay, I really do get one thing that this episode is going for. They're trying to go for the concept of inner beauty, but given Sam's history, i.e. everything I mentioned in the prior episodes in this video, she doesn't really have that. Not helping is the fact that Sam literally looks like poison. Well, not literally, but to use the statement that beauty pageants are objectifying women, by that logic, through Danny's eyes and the eyes of any other judge, Sam would look like poison. She would look like the last thing they would ever want to be around. In all fairness, this whole episode just seemed to me like it was Sam Manson's equivalent to a slut walk. Those things where all those fat, unattractive women march around in protest, essentially pretending to be the sluts that they wish they could be. Okay, episode 39, Double Cross My Heart. I'm essentially gonna do what I did with the previous episode. Give it a quick overview and then explain everything wrong with it. So anyways, before the intro plays, the guys in white get their hands on Skulker's robotic mech suit. After we see the title card, a new student named Gregor appears. He claims to be a transfer student from Norway who is into all of the same insane things Sam is. And yeah, Danny's ghost senses are triggered, but it's because he was around what Skulker was hunting. And yes, I know, the episode goes out of its way and does a really good job to make it look like this guy is actually Skulker's exosuit that was reprogrammed and is working for the guys in white. Or at least that's kind of what I got out of it when Danny said guy in white. It actually does kind of make sense. Gregor wins over Sam and Tucker really easily, but mostly Sam. Tucker actually agreed to tag along and spy on them for Danny, and although he didn't find anything, Danny still saw them kiss. But this was before Danny asked Tucker, his best friend, to spy on Sam for him. When Danny spells out his assumption, Sam has the nerve to get pissed off that a boy might actually like her. Gregor, in an act of complete douchebaggery, is self-aware that Danny likes Sam and tells him to his face that he's gonna ask her out. After a visit from the guys in white, Danny actually comes to the realization that Gregor wasn't working for them because they thought he was Danny Phantom. They thought Gregor was, not Danny. Gregor, or whatever his real name was, admits that he was faking it, and apparently he only wanted to date Sam, and this is after he wanted actual alone time with her without Tucker. After seeing some cheerleaders, he pulls out a Letterman to go hit on them, revealing himself to essentially be more like Glenn Quagmire from Family Guy than Danny Phantom. The guys in white still hunt down Gregor because they're incompetent. Tucker then saves this fraud, proving himself to be a notch cooler than said fraud. Danny Phantom then appears and tells the guys in white to stay away from his friends, and the episode ends with Danny raising Sam's self-esteem, or should I say ego, while Tucker tries to use one of the tricks that the fraud used to get girls, and it backfires. Okay, this might come off as a nitpick, but Sam didn't instantly dump this fraud the minute that he kissed her. If Danny did that, she'd probably slap him. And she didn't slap him when she found out he was faking it, which really sounds like something she would do. And yeah, if Danny did the same thing, say in season 1, not only would Sam have slapped him, but they would not be holding hands 5 to 9 seconds later. When Danny brings up the idea that the fraud could have or is a spy working for the guys in white to get to him, Sam gets pissed off and chews out Danny, claiming that it's absurd that the only... Okay, another problem with this episode is that she falls for this guy instantly. And to be honest, I kind of noticed something rewatching this episode that I missed back in 2005 or 2006, whenever this aired. and that's that Sam Manson is actually really shallow. She had no right to jump all over Paulina in episode 2. You see, Sam is shallow, but in a different way. You see, apparently all Danny would have to do is throw on all black clothes, and Sam probably wouldn't be able to keep herself off him. Also, Danny would have to stop eating meat, but that's something he could easily hide. I mean, this guy apparently was able to do it. Yeah, Danny does not have a big ego. Sam does. This guy is acting like a gender-swapped version of Sam Manson. Apparently, Sam here is so egocentric that she'd instantly fall in love with a gender-swapped version of herself. Okay, this is my next reason. The pervert trope. Something that you'll know I hate if you know me in real life. That the fraud wasn't a spy. He was just trying to get a little you-know-what from Sam Manson. Which is weird, but I guess since he's the first girl he saw, which apparently happened off screen, he just went for it. And then ditches him to chase after some cheerleaders. And he's essentially Glenn Quagmire. You know, the man who's obsessed with getting laid 24/7, thinks about women 24/7, thinks about getting laid 24/7 to the extent that it's psychologically unhealthy, and has no other character traits outside of that. To be honest, that kind of thing really pisses me off because it gives off the implication that all men are like that. Okay, the ending. This is a pretty good reason, and it particularly sucks. This episode ends with Danny rising Sam's already bloated ego and narcissism even higher. And to be honest, the true ending, well, no, not the true ending, but the ending this episode should have gotten, it would have worked better with a sad ending. Or a different ending. Allow me to spell it out. A better ending for this episode would ironically have to do with the beginning. You know, where Danny is staring mindlessly at Valerie and Tucker tells him he has to let go. Well, a better ending would be Danny going to the Nasty Burger or Valerie's house, them talking, and essentially Danny and Valerie actually getting back together. It would have been a way better ending, because Danny liked Valerie for tons of reasons, as opposed to that fake who only liked Sam Manson for her appearance. Here's my last complaint for Double Crossed My Heart, and it might be a nitpick, but here it is. All of Beauty Marked. The trap pageant that was set up by the ghost dragon guy was based around fairy tales, and it was pretty obvious that all the contestants wanted a boyfriend. And that was season 2 of Danny Phantom. Do I have other complaints? Yeah, I actually kinda do. These are things that happened in episodes that essentially Sam didn't play a big enough role in, or things that I just thought up prior to recording the episodes as I was tearing them apart. Okay, in the episode Attack of the Killer Garage Sale, we find out that Sam actually comes from a real, or any of the crazy things she believes in. In the second part of Rainstorm, when all the parents of at least Sam, Danny, and Tucker were fighting over who would sacrifice themselves to use the exosuit that Jack and Maddie made to fight Pariah Dark, which actually includes Jazz. I'm including her as a parent here. Sam, well, her parents, despite being rich, didn't hesitate for a minute to jump in and enter the fight to save their offspring. Okay, and to add insult to injury, she saw this whole ordeal go down before Danny steals the mech suit. And this is the episode that comes right after the one where Danny is complaining about having to live in the same house as his arch enemy, Vlad Plasmius. And Sam says that she knows what that's like because she lives with her parents. This kind of implies that she hates her parents. In the episode You Want What You Want, when Sam was sick, not only was she being taken care of by her grandmother, but 3 nurses and I think 2 doctors. That's how much her parents care about her. In the episode Control Freaks, they kind of had a reason to do that anti-goth protest. I mean, their daughter was skipping school, and yes, they did think that Danny was a terrible influence based on that journalistic piece on the news, but in all fairness, seeing this actually brought up something that was never answered within the show. Why is Sam like this? She has two loving parents, but she acts like a troubled child who comes from an abusive family. This is not how a girl born into a rich family would act. This is how an abused child would act. And here's the thing. This question could easily be answered if, say, Butch Hartman ever did, like, say, a YouTube video where he said Sam had a mental disorder, and that would perfectly explain her behavior in universe. But there was never a flashback scene in Danny Phantom that explained why Sam is the way that she is. A superiority complex? But no, Butch Hartman didn't do that. He could at least make a YouTube video and essentially pull an Azula like the writers of Avatar did when they went to some convention and said, "Oh, Azula's Hell, he could even copy those guys who wrote Avatar and say that Sam herself is schizophrenic. I mean, I understand that she's a teenager. At what point does she ruined what could have been? They could have really built Sam up in Season 3 and then have her revealed in the finale, or close to it, as a twist villain. You could go with the first option, that she was working for Vlad Plasmius from the start, or you could take a more creative approach and have her as the reincarnation of an ancient goddess / spirit of chaos. She could have been like Eris from Billy and Mandy. And making a choice like that would make Sam's behavior in the rest of the series makes so much more sense. I mean, it wouldn't be that she's trying to be an individual. It would actually be who she once was, or at least fragments of who she once was, slipping through to the surface. And now I'm going back to the very first episode, where she changed the lunch menu to only recyclable vegetarian options. And in that episode, she went on and on about how great being unique was, and then was surprised when the school didn't like being forced into her lifestyle. She said, unique is good. Well, Sam, to quote Rick Sanchez, so was Jeff. I know this girl kinda sees being a good person or not being a vegan goth as conformity, but in all fairness, Sam is a lot like Lisa Simpson, season 30 Lisa Simpson. You know, the kind of person who would break a ton of laws for some stupid social justice purpose. I mean, Sam is the kind of girl who is so wrapped up in her deranged quest for morality that she would let atrocities happen to achieve her goal. I mean, she broke the law in the 3rd episode. If Paulina and the popular girls were involved, I can't imagine how far Sam would go. I'm just gonna say it. Sam Manson is a terrible character, and she didn't deserve to get the ending that she got. Instead, I'm going to use fan art to show you what kind of ending she truly deserved. All links will be in the description. Being forced to conform by means of socializing. Being forced to conform by means of being forced onto the cheerleading squad. Losing a battle with Desiree in which Sam would end up switching places with her. Stepfordization, and essentially being struck by the Fright Night sword and forced into a fairy tale setting in which she will be forced to work for Paulina until the end of time. In all fairness, Sam Manson is a fucking terrible character who should have suffered one of the fates that I mentioned earlier in season 1. That's it. Review over. In all fairness, Sam Manson is a fucking terrible character who should have suffered one of the fates that I mentioned earlier in season 1. That's it. Review over. In all fairness, Sam Manson is a fucking terrible character who should have suffered one of the fates that I mentioned earlier in season 1. That's it. Review over.